Ready? Good morning, everybody. May 17th, 2023 at 10:01 a.m. To join and please stand me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we've already taken care of voucher and accounts payable. Agenda approval.
I have no changes.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
A motion has been made to approve the agenda as presented and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed?
Good time.
Hearing none, motion passes. Next item is minutes approval from previous county court, May 3rd, 2023.
I just had one correction on one of the motions. It showed that I made the motion and seconded it.
I caught it and I.
Okay, you already corrected
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, when
Yeah.
I pulled it up this morning. I was like, I just fixed it. Okay.
And I'd like to, I know that the broadband discussion was lengthy and you captured it really well. Tammy had asked, should she cut it back more? I said, no, let's just leave it all in there. Remind us if we ever need to think about that stuff or the public wants to understand, but good job. I mean, it was a lot of stuff. I would move to approve the Harney County Court meeting minutes of May 3rd, 2023.
I'll second.
The motion's been made to and seconded to approve county court minutes from May 3rd, 2023. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Sorry. I didn't email.
And hearing none, motion carries. Opportunity for public comment.
Are you feeling very publicly today, Rick?
Your turn.
Surely.
And hearing no public comment, we'll move on to new business. First item, home health and hospice update.
I just tried.
Was
calling
Jody,
her
I was
and,
gonna say-
yeah, I didn't get a hold of her, so.
Okay, well, we'll move around that one then. She's running a little behind maybe. I think we probably told her 10:10, didn't we?
I didn't talk to her.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. All right, well, we'll move past that one and move on. Longevity awards for Karen Zabala, 35 years, and Leanne Smith for 5 years. As I've wanted to do in the past to make sure that those are recognized and on the record. And I will deliver those to them at their departments. Give me a reason to get out of the
Yeah, I
office.
know. That's a great reason.
No, that's amazing. My wife and I were just talking about that last week.
really?
Because Karen was up here when Cheryl was up here. So, and she's been at the BLM for 15 years. So, yeah, it's crazy.
Time flies.
So the court recognizes their service and thanks them for their service, and I will hand deliver their awards to them later.
Thank you.
And moving on, approach permit. And this is just like the other permits that we've done for people that are, let me see, it's application for approval to install culvert and or approach from a county road.
And we do have updated ones with your signature, and I don't know how he ended up with an
Another
older
one.
one. So,
I saw that. I was thinking,
So this is at
Real red.
Blue Red.
Real Red Road
Yep,
off
yep.
Highway 205.
So you come in off of
Drop
205 on
right.
Rue Red, just as you make that little. That road's kind of weird because there's a cemetery there. So when they initially built that, they had to kind of go around the cemetery and then get back in line. So when it gets back in line, you're probably 200 yards from that cattle guard. They're wanting to and eventually put an approach going to the south. So, it's fine. There is no, visual.
There's not currently a home or anything
No,
there. They're
there's
just
nothing
kind of
there. The one
preparing.
nice thing about it, they're doing it on one of those little high
knobs.
spot knobs. So, it doesn't need a culvert. I mean, it's
It's
So
just an
they're-
approach from the road.
approach from the county road. Yep.
I was gonna say, so there's no culvert, just an approach.
No. Yep.
All right, I will make a motion to approve. Can I make motions too?
Yeah.
I usually leave it to you guys because it feels weird.
Because you're
being
the chair of the
person's
meeting,
chair.
so typically, but.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for approach to County Road for Rural Red Highway 205 and Rural Red Road.
I'll second.
And a motion has been made and seconded to approve the application for approach from a county road off Highway 205 to Rural Red Road. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. And opposed? And hearing none, motion carries. Next item under new business is administrative cost policy annual review. And this is the administrative costs that are charged by the treasurer to accounts. And then the specifics of accounts payable, total expenditures for the following categories: material supplies and capital outlay. If it's $1 million or more, then it's a 4% charge. It's 500,000 to $999.99, it's a 5%, and 0 to 499,999 is 6%. I believe that standard hasn't changed. Assuming this is just an annual requirement to review.
And we'd had some discussion around it, and I thought she said that we would further that discussion when we reviewed this, but now I'm having a hard time remembering.
I know that
what it was we were gonna
in my
do.
early years on the court, we weren't doing this. And then we realized the need to do this to help our budget and that it's a common
And they're
practice
based on the
anyway.
expenditure.
Right,
Materials and
Right.
supplies.
So, and again, when I look at, from my perspective, it's kind of high. For my department, but again, if that's a standard, and before we weren't doing that standard, by all means, but I just, when I see that, it's kind of like.
And
Kind of a
actually,
big hit.
the higher the expenditures, the less the
The
percentage.
percentage, yeah.
And it does,
4% still adds up, though.
oh yeah, it does, but accounts payable for total expenditures.
oh, she's coming.
What this doesn't indicate at all, we'll wait till Bobby Joe gets here. Hello.
Good morning. This is an annual review on
Yes.
this. Is there anything that you want to add, and then may have a question or two?
Well, there's nothing I really want to add. I know there has been talk from a couple of different departments about about the potential change of the percentages where they're wanting a decrease in that. But nobody has officially come to the court and asked for that, right?
Yeah, I haven't heard.
Yeah.
It's been discussed, and that's where, what I just don't see in any of this language is the opportunity for the court to make an adjustment to individual departments if we see fit, like there's no language indicating that
Right.
ability. Is that something that should be stated? If, because if a department did come and ask and we were to do that, well, then it doesn't show in our policy
Right.
that we've given ourselves that latitude.
I would lean towards not making exceptions and having a straightforward policy, because then we get into this a vote of favoritism or this or that but if the court would like to change the verbiage, we're welcome to look it over and do that. It's just my opinion is that if you allow for that, then you could have some departments paying 2% and some paying 4% and some falling under 6%, and I think it should be streamlined based on what the parameters are.
So the concept would be that the more expenditures, the more work, the more paper trail there is, the more. I mean, unless they're big expenditures, like if you have $1 million expenditure, it's one invoice.
Right.
If you have 500 invoices that add up to $1 million, that's more work.
Right.
So that would be justified for that payment.
Right.
And then in lesser amounts, 0 to 499,000.
Do we even have any? Let's say we probably do have.
Most of the
multiple
departments fall under the
in the
6%.
6%.
We have a couple that fall under the 1 million, and that would be the road
I'm trying to
and
think of any in the middle.
and possibly the fair.
That currently does.
Yeah, but then they'll probably fall back under the.
So as
six.
a standardization within the policy, I agree that the amounts should stay the same, but is there room for any exception in those numbers of invoices? Because that's kind of where you're,
Right,
like I say, if you have $1 million purchase, it's one invoice. If you have 20 of them, there's more work involved.
so the figures are based on
The
the
dollar.
budget, the bottom and the bottom line. The work could be done to calculate the invoices. I feel like it's more work than it's gonna reap the benefits of.
And this is an annual review, correct? We could, if we ever
That's-
decide we really want to change it, we don't have to wait till this time next year. We can just change it. This is that we like to have the practice of
Yeah,
annually
we just
reviewing it
is
as a
put
check-in.
in place, the court at the time said, every year, let's make sure we look at this and if we want to make changes, so like you don't necessarily have to sign it today. If there's room for discussion and you want the policy revamped, that's
So,
on the table.
and these fees come out of, are they non-departmental or non-general funds that these fees are being charged to?
Yes,
Yeah,
except
individual.
I mean,
for,
so internal general fund would be a wash. It would be kind of
right, so
redundant to.
it was put in place when we had the budget crisis, basically, to supplement the general fund for the work done by human resources and accounts payable. So all funds outside of the general fund should have this cost charged to them, with the exception of reserve funds and also any special funds that already have an admin associated with it, like the CAMI, the VOCA, the CFA.
It's gonna be an operating fund,
Yeah,
an operating fund that has materials
are
and supplies
treated
or
as-
personnel services.
yeah.
And so my question is because we are one of those departments, and I think I've asked you this before, these are audited numbers. So you're basing those expenditures at the end of the budget cycle. Those are audited numbers, not something that I have on paper as a budget.
Right.
Actual expenditure.
Actual, okay.
So the hard part of the budgeting piece of this is I've now started using your budgeted figures to calculate the expense for the next fiscal year,
Mhm.
which means the actual expense you're gonna pay will be less because you're not using the full budget.
Correct.
The reason I do it that way is just to avoid multiple resolutions, which we had the first couple of years in this place.
How many years has this been in place?
Um,
Since 1920?
well,
Probably 4 or 5.
And so and again, to make it fair, I mean, we are in line with other counties doing the percentage like this.
We just haven't
Yeah,
done it
okay.
until
Exactly.
we suddenly
before-
realized we need to.
I know before, I think, before this was implemented, the road fund just had a transfer built in that went to general fund. Is that sound right there? I'd have to go back in history and look, or no.
Not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Huh? The county court. Yeah, did you have something? Well,
This is an
we're-
ongoing discussion.
Yeah, we got a
I-
conversation going right now,
I
but
kind
if,
of forgot this was happening today, or else I'd have had all the ducks in a row for you, but I can gather any information you want.
Well, and I know that the fair had brought this discussion to Bobby Joe in a meeting because with the grants that were brought in, obviously they're going to be expended in a lump sum. And Lindsay's doing all the reporting for it. And so there will be some invoicing in that, but basically all the interest that's being made off of those grants sitting there, not being expended currently, basically is going back to pay the deal. And so there's no, like no opportunity to take that interest and roll it into the project to make sure the project gets across the finish line. And there was no AP or admin fee written into those grants either because of the way the state works. And so, some grants, when you do it, you can write in an admin cost. Those weren't ones that we were able to do that with. And so there was no room within the grant to pay an admin fee to the county for getting those funds and handling the funds.
even if a lot of those grants, I believe if it's not written into, like, say, 1,010,000, and the 10 would be the administrative portion of it. I believe an administrative cost is an allowable cost on any of those grants. Which, so if it's just
Yeah,
$1 million,
wasn't written
you could-
into the original
That's it.
figure, but
Yeah.
it's part of what ends up coming out.
And part of it too is like you mentioned the interest, but on the flip side, what people don't realize is I'm hand calculating that interest for every single fund because all that money is pooled on a monthly basis. So there's about a day's work in that process, just processes that people don't realize are being done behind the scenes to be the bank for a certain fund.
but so like in the fairs situation, they've had that grant money, some of that grant money's been sitting there for close to a year now. And it hasn't been spent,
Right.
so there's no
So they
administrative
are
cost,
taking the
yes.
benefit of the interest while
and
that
they're not
money's
actually being
used.
charged an administrative fee until those funds are starting to be expended.
Yeah, they'll be expended in the next
In the next fiscal year.
cycle and then probably into even the next.
So with that happening too, that's gonna lessen a little bit of the burden of the administrative cost if it's not all spent in 1 year. And they have been earning interest on it since it's been deposited. And it's quite a hefty little amount, actually.
Yeah, it was like 70,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even a cheap 3% on close to $3 million, $4 million.
And it's one of those deals where it becomes just like within general fund, they get a transfer, for 120, but then the 70 goes back. So really, so it all makes it work. But like I say, the outside funds, it feels a little different to them.
So as a part of the administrative cost, the sheet that I got that had by department administrative costs, the HR portion of that is figured into that amount.
It's, the HR portion is deducted
500
separately,
per
and it's
employee.
$500 per employee.
But I mean, in that sheet that had the amounts on it per department. Was,
There's one for just the administrative cost, and then there was a sheet for the
There was.
HR piece.
it's foggy up there, I
And,
remember now.
and
There was two
honestly,
sheets.
this was created, it was kind of just thrown together at the time in trying to come up with a plan, so it could be looked at and revised. I'm not opposed to that at all.
On the HR one. Because it's based on per employee. When is that charged?
It's usually charged in August, so in July I do the administrative cost, calculate it, charge it, and then the next month I do the HR admin fee, and I usually double check with Deanna as far as number of employees, because that can change throughout the year too, but we just kind of go with whatever it is at
That
that
day.
time.
The snapshot in time.
Mhm.
Do we want to table it for further discussion?
Yeah,
or-
we can bring it up at any time we want to, and we can
I mean,
figure
we-
out if it would become effective. Like, since it's a policy, for the next fiscal year or for immediate, we can make all those decisions later. I'd rather not do anything today.
I would like to make sure we take care of it prior to July 1, just so that then we're ready for the next.
Right.
And I guess my only take on it, and that's why I was asking is, again, it was implemented during kind of a
The budget
crisis. Now that the crisis has been averted, or, we're beyond that, is just to look at it and make sure that it's within guidelines of other counties or whatever. And that was my question.
And that's good. And just like some things where we suddenly make a change to start, for instance, the 911, start charging dues again when they totally didn't for a number of years. I hesitate to make a change till we really think it through.
Have these percentages stayed the same over the last 4 or 5 years?
We haven't.
It's kind of been.
I think it's a good
5
practice
years.
because our HR and treasurers
But it
actually,
it's had no change to it. The way it is the way it is.
we've
from
kept
it is
those
from
were the
inception.
original percentages.
All right,
We'll keep
I don't know, we
thinking
have to-
about it and do a little more work.
we just table it, or do we have to have a motion to table?
I make a motion to table the administrative cost policy.
I second.
A motion's been made and seconded to table the administrative cost policy. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So we'll move that to old business and then as we get to it. Next item of business, thank you, Treasurer. Yeah, not on the agenda, but what's your topic?
Well, I came down here not necessarily to discuss this as a county court topic. I was gonna chat with you, but I think it's probably appropriate just to have a quick conversation about the internship that I'm trying to establish with High Desert Partnership.
Okay, well, that actually kind of plays
Does
into.
actually on one of these.
Yeah. So we have, as the
Remember
next
seeing it
item on the
somewhere.
agenda is the amendment to employee handbook
Yeah.
internship policy.
Good timing,
I
Bruce.
didn't know
Good
that was on
timing.
there. but
Yeah, so,
that's
so actually, we don't have to add anything, that plays right into it.
Perfect.
So to start it off, I will just let you discuss to the court or describe to the court what you're working on, and then we'll talk about the.
So I had a young lady that's interested in the public safety field approach me about potentially doing some volunteer hours this summer while she's home from college with my office, and I was really intrigued by that, and obviously it would be super helpful to us. She's over 18, which makes her eligible to dabble in a lot of the areas that we, participate in on a daily workday. I had some prior conversations with High Desert Partnership because we had provided some data from our office about some youth initiative options. And so I reached back out to them and asked potentially if there was any funding for like a collegiate level internship. Recently, my office had participated in an internship that was initiated by the jail, and it was like a 2-week rotation with a high school student from Burns High School, and it was well thought out. It went extremely well. I think it was a great experience for the youth. So when that's what piqued my interest to go back to High Desert Partnership and ask if there was some funding available for that. Well, it turns out they were extremely intrigued by it. They were funding one other collegiate internship in the natural resources field. So they were super excited to be able to do that. They're willing to fund it 100%. There's not necessarily a cap on the number of weeks. They did ask that they could set the wage for the internship at $19 per hour to stay congruent with the other wages for the other internships that they're running this summer, obviously fine by me. So I've had some conversations with Judge Hart and Ms. Atwell about bringing this person on. It's the desire of High Desert Partnership to run this individual through our payroll. And the reason that they like to do that is because they like to show their funders that they're expending this amount of money to these various entities for various internships throughout the community. We've run into some policy situations where our handbook, really the only hiring policy that we can run this under is like a temporary help, which has a 12-week cap. I just am frustrated by the fact that it's not going to cost the county any amount of money. I mean, they are willing to factor in.
This is addressing that.
Okay, that's what I was hoping. So I was coming down because I just had a conversation this morning with them where they're willing to fund this for however long we can support it. And so I just had a conversation with Deanna about maybe making an amendment or a new internship policy or whatever. And I didn't realize that was on today's agenda, or I wouldn't have come and interrupted that. But I was just hoping that, it's a great opportunity.
I was wondering what had triggered it, so that's.
Yeah.
So Director Hatley, right, Director?
Yeah.
We had, like she said, had talked about this, and the only policy that we had in the handbook for temporary hires was temporary employment, and it has a 12-week cap on it.
Right.
Now, recognizing that this is a different situation and recognizing that it's being funded by outside sources, we decided, you know what, just to make it to make this fit and to be able to do this, that we needed at least a basic internship policy. The only caveat that we run up against is hours of work. It can't exceed 599 hours. If we hit the 600-hour mark, then the county will have to go back and pay PERS for the individual. So the 599-hour cap is firm. However, you can spread that out over 4 months or whatever is fine, or 5 months or whatever is fine, but it will end up costing.
And I was aware of that. So
Okay.
if this particular youth in question works 17 weeks at 32 hours a week, she will end up with 544 hours by
So you've done the math.
by September 21st, 2020. So
When it's time for her to go back to school.
correct.
Is she a freshman in college or a senior in high school?
She's a freshman in college now, entering her sophomore year this
Okay.
coming fall. Yeah, and on top of that, she did go back to Treasure Valley Community College and ask them about being able to earn credits because there's a work study portion to the criminal justice program. And so she is enrolled in an elective work study program. And what we're doing here, I created a job description and she's going to do like a presentation at the end of that internship and she will get college credit for that.
Even better.
I've expressed myself to you personally. This is awesome. This is great work. But for the record, just so everybody hears it, this is great. I think the more opportunities we have to engage youth and provide these kind of opportunities is great for the county at all levels. So
I'm excited and there's
Yeah.
been a lot of other department input. I mean, she's gonna be able to dabble. We're not gonna necessarily do a 2-week structure in each department like the high school one, because I think that, if the trial's going on, I want her to be in the courtroom and get that. And if there's stuff that the patrol deputies can take her on, she's gonna do some time in the jail, and some time with Lottie. So she's gonna get,
good. Excellent.
yeah. Okay.
So that's what this is for. And I'm gonna read and this was put
And
together.
I will have a change to recommend after you read
Okay.
it.
This was put together in just like a day or so. We kind of took the temporary employee portion of the employee handbook and started from there. HR specialist Atwell, all on, kudos to her. She did some research a little bit, whatnot, and then this is what we come up with. So this will be And we have signatures on it, so what we're gonna do is file this page here as an amendment to the handbook. It will be added to the digital copy of the handbook and put on the employee portal, so it's out there for everybody to see. But then when it comes time, maybe later this year, when we actually sit down and do an actual full review on, then this will be printed as a printed portion of it. So it's, and I don't have the section and everything this comes out of, should have been at the top of this, but, so it's item 4 under the, I believe it's the employment section of the handbook. Internship. Employment under the internship classification is established for a period of time not to exceed 599 hours in a calendar year, or for the duration of the specific project or group of assignments. An internship can either be full-time or part-time. Internship employees are not eligible for benefits other than those mandated by applicable law. An internship must be approved by the county judge and human resources. This internship position is not meant to replace a regular full or part-time employee. They are not eligible to apply for an in-house regular position as they have not gone through the county's competitive hiring process. Internship positions are funded by an outside agency and must not exceed the funding source. The funding source must pay for all salary and benefits.
The only change I would make is to, in that first sentence, take out the word or, because here we're saying it's established for a period of time not to exceed 599 hours, or for the duration of a specific project. So it actually kind of makes it look like, or it could be more. So if you just take out that word or, Deanna let me look at it yesterday, and I caught that, and I just said that would correct that.
Okay, so and instead of, because she's not here, and I said she's going on a training today,
Yeah.
I'm gonna line through it and initial it. And then, is that
Then we
okay?
can, yeah.
Yeah,
Sign
go
a
ahead and
clean
initial it.
copy once it's ready to.
Or, yeah. Does that sound?
The only other thing too with outside agency, I kind of hate to use agency instead of entity. Because a
Mm.
nonprofit entity versus an agency, an
Yeah,
agency
that's
seems
good.
more specific. to
So the second to last sentence,
Yeah, just
internship
right
positions
there.
are funded by outside
Entities
entities or sources.
versus whatever, but
outside.
an agency doesn't
Yeah.
quite fit the scope.
Entity.
They say sources is just fine too.
You know. Sourced by you.
Good luck.
They're restricting that by that policy. saying
That we don't
any
have our own-
agency outside has to bring you one. You want-
Well, we'd have to,
you?
then if it was internal, then we'd have to have funding for it. We'd have to budget for it. I mean, that's something we can look at, but
I'd say for now, I like entity and or source, whichever. And when might they start?
Monday.
Yeah.
May 22nd.
Okay.
This afternoon.
As soon as this is signed.
Yeah. It's stressing me out. I just felt like if the money's there and it's not gonna cost the county anything, it's just gonna gain. more
No, and
experience,
it's really
it's a
awesome
situation
because
that-
High Desert Partnership has, been this awesome piece, at first it was always the ecological, economic, and what's the third leg of their stool? Anyway, that socioeconomic piece that includes things like this naturally, because they deal a lot with the natural resource conservation things, those tended to be all career tracks for that. And I always said, can you open up to other stuff too? And this is a great example of something that's not necessarily in that lane. And I'm glad to see it.
as just thinking outside the box, so if we're looking at other departments, and since we have road department here, what kind of certifications do people have to go through training certifications for heavy equipment operators? Positions or types of equipment?
We don't require any. The only certifications that we require, an operator to obtain is CDL. There are ones out there in the industry, and there are training facilities that provide those, that have certificates for a loader operator, grader operator. I mean, the whole array, but as far as a requirement for us, and that's the stumbling block right now, is CDLs. CDLs are just off the charts. You know, 5 years ago, you could walk in and do your own study. You know, go in and do the written, go do the drive test, and you know, a couple of $100, you had your CDL. And it's at the very minimum, $6,000 to get a CD, to obtain a person, if they want to get a CDL, it's $6,000. Because you need to go to a facility, a instructor that actually implements that. So it's a stumbling block. It's not one that we've really come across per se at this point in time, because everybody that was hired pre this, you know, we helped them, they used our truck. We helped them along to be able to get to that. You know, they just needed to get it in 6 months, but now it's a whole nother ballgame.
So then leading to my question, would there be a way that we could create, maybe working with the partnership of creating some kind of an internship, a training program or something that would help people get a CDL or anything?
Other than, you know, you have to go with the guidelines of, DMV.
Yeah,
So again, and you have to be a certified instructor to make that happen. So ODOT was ahead of the ball game. They have their own certified instructor. I haven't looked at that. I've looked at the training schools. There's one in Baker, and I think they have a satellite training facility in Prineville. I was just at a meeting last month where they came and gave a presentation, and they do all the certificates, but the biggest hot topic for most of the counties was the CDL.
something to think about.
Yep. I mean, it's gonna be an issue down the road. It just hasn't bit us yet.
Well, this is great. This is a
Yep.
win-win all around. I look forward to hearing after it's in place for a while. How it's going.
Description that she's going to do a presentation to the county board as
Very
well
good.
as
Very
the
good.
board of directors for Kaiser Partnership. So that's.
Yes. I'll make a motion to approve with the
edits.
couple of changes, section 4, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah.
Item 4 under the,
Let me pull the policy up real quick. Mike.
let me be accurate with me. Maybe I could pull it up.
Seems like half of it. Bouncing back and forth.
So was it, I mean, this is our table of contents, was it under the hiring? Or
It might be.
different? Kind of does reference the hiring process within this.
How many county court members does it take?
When you don't go over the handbook very often. Don't know if this data.
Status.
Under temporary employees, there's number 4 outside hire. Was it meant to replace a number 4? Or was it going to be an additional one under one of the?
I know there's a section that talks about temporary employment and it has the 12-week restriction in it. And this was supposed to go right underneath that. Let's, can we tentatively approve this for now?
Yeah.
Until we get
And
these
then we'll
edits made,
figure
and,
out which
I'd like to have this piece right here reference what part it should have been in a header. I didn't think about it until now. But it should have been in a header showing what portion and part this is fitting into. So let's just tentatively do it pending the corrections in it.
I move to tentatively approve, what would you call it, since it doesn't have a heading?
Internship
The
policy.
internship employment policy as edited today. Well, are we approving it?
Yeah, this is a new.
I mean, this
Piece.
is not, I mean, do we really want to tentatively approve or just
No,
say
we're
approve?
approving.
Yes, so going to approve it with the edits made, knowing that it will be formally added to our employee handbook
Okay.
within the next
correct
week or so,
section.
in the correct section.
There's a lot of caveats.
We'll find the right spot for it. I second that.
I have a motion to approve the internship policy with edits mentioned, talked about, and identification as to the exact location that this will go into the employee handbook. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye,
Aye,
Aye.
and opposed? Hearing none,
Um,
motion passes.
here it is.
Did you find it?
Yeah, so under temporary, this must be the item 4.
Thank
that
you.
would be.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
let's see, what's it, a B2?
Employee
Section
status,
2, employment status, B, number 4,
employee, what was it?
employee status,
Employee
page
status.
19.
B. And B was employee classification.
It means it's number 4, this should become page 20. Is where this one would be.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That part right there just shows the hierarchy of it.
That's it, how many scroll down, saw the 12 weeks. So.
That takes care of new business, old business. GEODC MOU and broadband service agreement between GEODC and Harney County.
Okay, I'd like to give you an update on that. So in the packet, you saw an updated revised MOU with GEODC and its contractor Sequoia Services. This revised or updated one removes open-ended grant writing services from the document that Commissioner Shellman had commented on at the last discussion, and it reduces the BAT services amount a little bit now for just a one county broadband action team, or BAT, and that is because Malheur County, I've spoken with them on Monday, and they say they, at this point, appreciate all the inclusion, but they're going to pass. They only feel they have two underserved areas in their county, Jordan Valley a little bit, and I believe A-Rock, and that they're not hearing from their people, that it's an issue. And so it's not a priority for them at this time. So that's good to know. I appreciate all the collaboration. As you know, I tried to work through how do we regionalize if we want to, and that was because if it makes sense, we should do it. It had advantages, but I do feel that Harney County made good faith attempts to regionalize beyond our own county borders, that we've done our due diligence with the counties that potentially made sense. It's not in the cards due to differing levels of need and readiness. And so we determined that. And on the good side of with that is that, you know, Harney County truly is a region unto itself. Some counties aren't, but Harney County is, particularly with regard to our geographic expanse and remoteness. And again, looking on the positive side, proceeding with a single-minded approach for Harney County for this work is a good thing, because one, all identified priorities will be Harney County priorities. Collaboration and coordination with all the entities that are involved, internet service providers, electric co-ops, schools and educational service district, vendors, federal land agencies, and community members, without adding the same kind of stakeholder mix from another county or two, is already, and it's already a full effort just doing our own. So, and also Harney County leadership efforts on this endeavor can then be focused on our people and communities. And frankly, I was the one doing all the heavy lifting, you know, and so I'd rather do it, you know, with our ability to focus. So anyway, twists and turns. I've asked County Council to determine the appropriate contractual instrument if we're going to move forward with this, to obtain broadband action team support services and the feasibility, rapid design, pre-engineering work, which I do believe is very timely to pursue. Dominic is reviewing the MOU and the services. He said he'll give us the best legal advice on whether we should go full proposal, request for proposal or not. He'll draft up he will I'll bring to you a draft of professional services contract. He's thinking on it, and he said he'll get that to me next week. So we'll keep you informed at every juncture. We want to do it right.
If Malheur County were to change their mind in the next little bit, is that still an option for them at this point?
Well, I mentioned,
how close is that?
I told Judge Joyce, I said, Susan Christensen from GEODC asked her to call him first and talk to him. And then I followed up a few days later. And he said, yeah, they might, yeah, in the future, they may find that it becomes a priority. And I said, we'll keep that in mind. You know, if we end up calling ourselves a Southeastern Oregon Broadband Action Team, not just a Harney County, if we pick a more, just not a Harney County title for our Broadband Action Team, then they could negotiate to pay into and become part of, if that's appropriate at that time. We're happy to work with them in the future. We understand they're not at a point of readiness or priority now, and that's okay, you know, and he was appreciative of that. And I just don't think any of their county court members, plus what they hear from their community or how they see it, but there just hasn't been an area of a lot of knowledge on their part at this time, and I totally understand. Wish I'd known it earlier, but on the other hand, good working relationships all around, so.
So this MOU between the county and GEODC. Are they going to contract with Sequoia Consulting?
Sequoia is
they-
already, is contract staff for them already. And if we did it this way, part of it was initially, part of it was because we were doing multiple counties. It's like GODC is an umbrella. They can apply, they can do the grant writing can go in and cover us all. And none of us have the staff to do a good job with this highly technical types of applications. And they can still do that for one county. But is that the way we ought to go? I don't know. If we have to go RFP, if our county council recommends that we do normal request for proposal for services, then we would need to expend a little bit of the money it takes to advertise and go through that process, and we can do that. And then GEODC or Sequoia could bid on it or not, just like anyone else. It might bring some other entities to the fore. I was primarily working with GEODC because I was looking for an avenue to take the administrative and grant writing burdens off of us, as well as, it's hard for us to figure out who the good ones are to contract with, but we may need to go just the normal process, and that if that's advised, that's what we ought to do, as far as I'm concerned.
So he will get back to you soon.
He couldn't quite get back to me today, and I said, that's fine. I said, why don't I check in with you Monday? And he said, oh, fine. And we had a little chat, and he said he'll try to draft up a professional services contract to look at as well. So any thoughts?
So this MOU right now just codifies our relationship with GEODC in this.
This was something that GEODC recommended that we do something. If we have language we want to ask to put in there, that's fine. This was something that Susan Christensen came up with, so that it gives them permission to be the applicant, their permission to be,
So,
Working on our behalf.
yeah.
so the next step though, does this encumber the county to any funds, any financial obligation?
It doesn't.
Yeah,
have
well,
anything.
it refers to services. GEODC will provide services as described in this. So this is kind of like the statement of work or attachment dated, and the date keeps changing. This is the most recent, May 9th. Payments for services will be made to GEODC. So they would be the person providing our services. They're using this entity to do so.
The only thing then I would say, because we don't know I'd like to know what we're gonna be paying.
Would you like the amount put right in this document
Well, I'd
itself?
like to maybe have a sentence in there that says, as indicated in future
attachment
agreement.
A,
Yeah.
which that would become the attachment. But
So
right now it
here it
doesn't
says as
reference-
Yeah.
described in
Attachment.
this, so you want to make this attachment A,
Describes the contract.
attachment A, or scope of work, or whatever is appropriate.
Something that identifies what we're paying and what we're paying for.
Do you want that, the brief summary of the two things we're paying for also mentioned literally in the MOU? Because that wouldn't take but a second to do. It'd be,
I'd be surprised that Dominic doesn't at least call out what we're calling out in what he comes back with.
so what we're looking at, again, this could easily be put into the MOU itself, and then this would just be the amplifying.
But you're saying currently, instead of paying, because I think what did
It
we
was
calculate
65, it was
last time?
65,000 last time for this.
Yeah, this
It
document
was
does have,
65, and so they
They-
only knocked,
But, it's, the
less
work
than
is
6,000 off to do
a one county.
one county versus two.
Well,
I was
there might-
hoping that number would have came down a little.
I
more to
know,
do-
but I understand that sometimes that level of effort is not something you can divide in half. And then, took out the other stuff. Happy to keep working them, hear what Dominic says. I'd be happy, if we get bids worth considering. I've really enjoyed working in learning more as I've worked with GEODC on stuff, not trying to ram this down, but I've heard nothing but the particular individuals listed sort of as their people are well regarded in the world of Oregon broadband. I know that. I don't know much beyond that, so they're easy to work with.
Yeah, I mean,
But they're not guaranteed
like-
anything per se. You
I
know.
like the idea of dealing with GEODC and letting them provide that umbrella. I like that idea. It's just that as far as before we actually commit ourselves to something, like to have this document. I mean, there are numbers in this document.
We'll
But I'd
put,
like
we'll
to
put
have
a
something-
paragraph in or in that same, yeah, I'll ask her to rework that.
Well,
So-
like I say, if Dominic's reviewing it,
Yeah.
chances are his edits will come back with some of that.
Correct.
And
So
if it doesn't. then
it's not dead. I think it's progressing. I
Yeah.
think we're being very thorough, which I like.
So we'll keep it under old business
Okay,
and continue the discussion.
correct. I'd like that.
Anything further on that topic?
Do you guys have anything further you want looked into?
Um,
I think that should do it at this time.
I just briefly read over it this morning. I'd like to spend a little more time with it. And then I'll get back to you if I have any questions.
I'll be sending you guys information from Dominic next week once I see what it is.
Nothing further on that. Then the next item under old business is renaming the building fund 356, which I'm not really ready. I've left it on here as old business because we need to address it, but I'm not really ready
To address.
to address it yet. So just, I'm gonna recommend or propose that we just continue to table it.
Which fund
There's
is
a
that?
couple-
Oh, the building.
The building fund, but there's a couple other funds that have come to light that may end up getting,
At the
Say-
same time.
Sounds good.
as we become more familiar with budget laws and whatnot, there's might be a couple more that need the same kind of renaming or whatever, so.
Okay.
So that takes us to public water notices.
Looked at them, but just some transfers and one permit.
I did just that one this morning too.
So,
This one here dated 5/17.
Yep. I remember looking at it, but now I gotta remember. I was just wondering, what is Rocky Mountain Agronomics? You guys know who they are?
yeah, they are a fertilizer company. Their base is out on Hutchinson Road. Oh. You know where that is.
Yep.
They're kind of similar to Simplot and that with their services.
There's one.
And next topic, correspondence. We have a letter from DEQ Material Recovery and Waste Generation Summary.
But that was
It sounded like
interesting.
we're doing real good. It's like,
Like, how do you really come up with those figures? But that's just me.
well, I
Just we
do,
can show that we're doing our part.
I do know that when I visited C&B Sanitary at some point in the last several months, when I was trying to clarify what they do regarding cardboard and stuff, just for my own information, and it might have been the end of last year, I don't know when it was, but Karen brought out a binder where she keeps her copies of these, she was on top of, at least for documentation of this stuff. Is that something that you felt we should have someone come and explain to us what it all means or not?
That's fairly clear after reading through it, you know,
Yeah.
what they were basing it off of,
Yeah.
but. I
Is
guess
this part of the figures that you prepared?
for
that
this survey
when,
or,
Carrie came in and helped you?
No, that was the role.
Okay.
and that's where I'm still kind of wondering, you know, so you, filled in the survey that the DEQ had requested, is this anything to do with that, or is
No,
this a completely
something different.
separate?
No, the Modernization and Recycling Act.
Yeah,
that's entirely
nothing to
different
do
from
with
this.
that, okay.
But doing that, it's kind of.
And this is just something they do as information, or is anything like really? Did they take any action or programs or developed?
Is this
around
kind
this
of a watershed
information?
thing that
Yeah,
it
it
mentions
referenced the
watershed? Said your watershed should be proud of the efforts your recovery rate represents. Is that?
Waste.
It is. I'm sorry. You're right.
I read it the same way.
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. Okay, W, okay. All things W. The waste shed,
Well, the
wow.
DEQ guy was on my trip yesterday, and so I was like, well, maybe this is
Yeah.
something in his field.
I got some waste sheds on my property. Sheds with waste.
I think the biggest difference there is the change. Last started not being reported much there.
Your tonnage goes way down.
So would that probably be for most places then, or across the state? Or oh, we are. It is.
Small bars. Mechanical pressure.
Sort of a buzz.
Like a physical one, which top of a 55-gallon barrel axle.
I don't know if some of that aggregate that we used out when we redid that bridge on Emory Bridge. Evidently ACW was involved with trying to dispose of some of the glass, and it actually, some of that crushed rock out there actually had glass in it.
Mm,
And again, I mean, you think, oh my gosh, tired, no, it's not, it actually,
And
it
once you
fits right
crush it
into
down.
the fines with the aggregate and works just fine. We didn't know that until it was all said and done, that that's what they had sent out there to us, but yeah. I mean, we're
But they're
fine.
not interested in.
I don't,
crushing
because
it.
they don't, well, again, they do have a small crusher, but I don't know. And they asked us at one time, and I've never ran any through there, I just never have ours.
But it could supplement your material.
I mean, it could, we just have never done it.
So if we had a source, that's the biggest thing is it's heavy to haul and transport out of
But
here.
if you weren't.
So if
trying
we
to
had a
haul it
local
out,
source, yeah, if we had a local in-source user for it,
Mhm.
and you wouldn't have to sort colors and everything, I wouldn't think.
No.
or
no, you
labels
don't
or
care what
whatever.
color it is, as long as-
No, and again, I mean, to get the biggest thing would be to get the percentages
Correct.
right, so you don't create an issue, and I guess I've never been involved with it, I just know that when you said that, and,
Yeah.
you know, we ended up with the end product out there on the bridge.
So
So we're fine.
Did they send you the mix already?
It was in the mix.
Yeah.
It was in the mix, it was
hot-
just a
hot
big,
mix
no, it was just like, you know, they delivered it in a belly dump or end dump, just brought it out and
As
we
ag-
spread it
as aggregate?
as aggregate, base rock, yeah,
It's
But
just
you don't-
quartz.
with that.
It's just a form of quartz.
Yeah,
You know, when
but
when
I
it
just,
comes
I had
back
this,
to
I had
the
this
Mineral
visual,
element.
yeah,
It's just
metal of
quartz.
shard glass and flat tires and,
You don't wanna walk down
Phone
on bare
calls.
feet?
well.
But if you put obsidian in your mix, you're mixing the same stuff.
There
It's
you
all
go.
quartz,
There you go.
hardness of 7,
There you go.
you know. like it all-
You would just have to get the
Behaves the same.
percentages right to where I would think, but I don't really know. I mean, you know,
That'd be-
gradation, right? It's the same way when you're crushing rock, you know, you have gradations and you do gradation tests to figure out exactly what kind of aggregate you're laying out or producing.
That'd be for consideration in our recycling program down the road.
Yeah, if you actually had the correct crushing, mechanism.
But I did figure it out myself.
Who, Mr. Paul, do you know who gathers these figures? Excuse me?
And
No,
Did you?
like at the
No,
recycling
I'm still
center,
working on the one
who
for-
submits? How does that data?
So that's some of
Because
that
this
stuff
is
that-
2021, so you're working on the 2022.
Okay.
So that's some of those different things.
Okay,
recycling center gets tires, like swap and point us with information.
okay, so you are, this is, okay. I was thinking this was something entirely different, but you are working, okay.
And reflection gives the amount of oil they use. It's a fairly large task for them.
Not just him.
I have done, them. I know what it is.
That's- That's the only correspondence I had. You guys have any correspondence to share?
I have comments from Dominic on the Division 10 rules. I have not had a chance to read them yet, since he sent them to me on Monday, but I'll send them to both of you to review. But we did feel it would be good for Harney County to just go ahead and submit some comments on the Division 10 prior to it going to the commission in June. And so I'll share that out to you, and you can reply to me if you have any additions to that.
And then
Then
at
we'll
some
send
point,
it
did
in.
you want to be on the agenda of a future meeting to at least talk about it? At one of our county court
Yeah,
meetings?
we can put it on the agenda, but I gotta look at the date for submission quick.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any
There
other
shouldn't
correspondence?
be too much.
Correspondence? No.
Takes us to scheduling regular court dates, June 7th, 2023 at 9:30 a.m. and June 21st. The June dates.
Where did May go?
Yeah, That's, I was
Where's
looking at
Thursday?
some-
May is always- So I do want to just ask if you have figured out the dates, and I could have this wrong, for a budget. Do we have a public budget hearing once we've approved the budget prior to the hearing to adopt the budget? Seems like there's
There is,
two things.
there is in between there, and I haven't said it yet.
So,
I gotta get into those regulations and find out what the public notice time frame between. And I hope I'm not behind, because I was kind of tackling it one step at a time.
hurry,
Yeah,
hurry.
I know it.
No, no, just,
But yeah, I haven't said it yet.
okay, yeah, I know. Just, we obviously want to
She
be
wants you
there.
to do it.
I want to be there.
I have budget work, to do today. So.
Sounds good, thank you.
As far as other scheduling goes, my schedule, I leave tomorrow for the 4th session of county court or county college. And then because I won't be attending their June session and final session, a makeup opportunity for ours is the Tillamook Water tour. So I'm gonna go to that and I'll be gone Thursday through Monday, back on Tuesday.
Thursday
And-
through Monday.
Yeah, and then next would be the 25th and 6th. Just personal leave out of the office afternoon of the 25th and the 26th.
And so I saw when you replied to Andrea that you'd said, as long as it was in the morning on the 25th, that would work.
Yep, and she.
And you'd replied to that already.
I'm gonna make it.
I have
here.
my schedule open still on that, so.
That'd be good.
And she's gonna come in on the 24th to talk with me.
To
Just
try to
kind
get
of
you up to
background.
speed, because we've
background.
had those meetings with her prior, so
Yeah.
background's really important prior to coming into that.
And then,
The 22nd, I'll be in Ontario with the CIP.
okay, yeah, it's an in-person one in Ontario. Yeah. Which, let them know I won't, obviously I won't be there, but I'll be in Portland or Tillamook.
And Patty and I'll be at the
Better place
EOCA and John Day that day.
Right, so Monday, the 22nd, Krista and I are going to the Eastern
John Day.
Oregon County Association
Okay.
meeting in John Day.
That was another thing on that same day. There's a lot going on.
I know.
So-
I mean, I got all these Yeah, you gotta pick and choose now what you attend, it seems like.
And then just, because it's kind of my day planner type of a thing. I have a meeting. I don't know if this is schedule or if we're just into general deliberation, but, I have a meeting DEQ. Um, from, oh, that's the 9 to 5. It's a DEQ. Lori Gordon is coming over and they're doing a several different topics. The agenda is just for topics.
What day are we talking?
On the 23rd.
Of May?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to kind of what the topics are. So some of the topics: DEQ update, state agency contained animal feeding operations,
Campus.
update on that. And update of recent changes to how DEQ, okay, local air quality steering committee update.
Would you forward that? I might sit in
Okay.
on some of those if it's okay.
They haven't finalized, I don't know, if these are topics, but they haven't
Oh.
finalized. I sent her an email yesterday on what my priorities would be of topics, because I do have a
Okay,
noon thing, I think, on that day.
yeah.
But material management grant opportunities. And then group discussions on solid waste and illegal dumping. And she put in here concerns raised by Judge Hart, and I don't remember talking to her about any concerns, so I asked her for some clarification on that, but it might be back there somewhere. And then Brownsfield overview, which I definitely wanted to, because we do have some brownfield opportunities. Or we're assessment, we still have the assessment grant that we have $86,000 to do something with. Recycling Modernization Act, Burns Water, wastewater treatment. And then they were looking at maybe doing some public or possible tours of the Lincoln Building, wastewater treatment facility, and Rimrock Recycling. I'll forward this over to you.
FYI, I have been accepted as a member of the Recycling Modernization Act second group.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I've been accepted as a part of the Recycling Modernization Act second implementation group.
Which
Okay.
means second,
It is dealing with setting. parameters.
Do you want this email too? Excuse me? You bet. Okay, that's gone, and then, so I do have some, and the reason I'm doing this is because I do have some meetings coming up that are they're gonna be interesting stuff. So again, the biomass, kind of a background update on the 24th, the 25th. There,
it's looking like 9 to 10 is what I'm seeing us
Yeah.
penciled in at on the 25th. Or 9 to 11.
9 to 11. Yeah. And that's at the school district, is that correct?
Yes.
that's it for the very near future. I do have, well, I guess, as far as scheduling goes, that's what I have. If anybody has anything else for scheduling?
Give me just a second and I might. I gotta. Sounds as though the date that was given to us for the governor coming is maybe getting pushed back. I just got a text from. Courtney.
Yeah, and I just seen that email yesterday that had the 8th on it.
Yeah, well, who was that?
And is that something that,
There we
like, they
go.
kind of set up and then they let us know who they're gonna be visiting with?
That's where we'll work with Courtney on that piece of the.
Is there gonna be a public element to it? Are they?
Yes, they'd reached out to some other stakeholders, but we're gonna kind of help with setting priorities for that schedule. Once we have an actual date.
You say push farther in the future than
Push
June?
back
Oh.
is what she's just telling me right now. Still doesn't give us an actual date.
Hmm.
It just came yesterday. I looked
Yeah,
at it yesterday and I cannot seem to get it to show, oh, Regional Solutions Exchange for them.
Your
Okay.
picture is in
Yeah.
there.
Did you find it?
Yeah,
Okay. And Sam, where I put it.
it was sent by Gina, but I was thinking it was sent by somebody directly
Oh,
from Regional
Right.
Solutions.
Are we in general deliberations yet or not quite?
If everybody's done with schedule,
I am, and I'll keep you posted as this moves on.
um. Then that would take us to late items. We didn't have anything for late items and general deliberation.
I got a bunch, but I can go whenever.
Go ahead.
In no particular order, so the topic I discussed with you guys at a county court meeting, general deliberations about my thought that Association of Oregon Counties, as they have positions on legislation, that they need to add not just support, oppose, and neutral, but they need to add one called divided. When our state is divided on legislation, whether it's gun stuff or any other stuff that is really divided, we don't want it to go as neutral. Neutral is different than being divided. So I will be bringing that up at the Eastern Oregon Counties Association meeting. Paul Andrus, Commissioner Paul Andrus, Union County, asked me what I was going to be talking about, and he was headed to Western Interstate Region in Utah. And he said, do you mind if do I have your permission to mention this to the executive director of AOC, Gina, who will be there? And I said, you have my permission, mention my name so she can call me if she wants to discuss. I was planning to, if people generally say yes, that would be a good way to inform legislators, whether they take it to heart or not, then that would be something for the AOC legislative retreat. So I'm just.
Klamath, or is that-
Yes, I believe so. And so I just wanted to begin the discussions here regionally, etc. And so nothing formal, just that's continuing on.
I will, on the Tillamook Water Tour. Director Nichols.
Gina
Gina.
Nichols.
She's not gonna be at County College this week, obviously, because she's in Utah, but she will be on Monday, will be on that, so. If you have anything you want me to talk with her about then, or get her ear.
Well, I probably need to talk to
Is
her.
it gonna be on I know Eric, or Derek had sent out an email regarding the Klamath meeting coming up. Is
I haven't-
it something you're planning on getting on
Asking-
a specific agenda item for that? To me, it
Yes.
seems like, especially with District
Was
2
it
meeting
September,
then,
wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
that it would be
because
a good time.
I
to find that
will.
out.
I just wanted to wait till I hear how the EOCA commissioners respond, and I'll be talking to Gina and trying to get it on an agenda item. Good point.
I mean, if she grabs my arm about it, I'll just tell her that we're talking about it, but I'll let her, other than that, I'll let you.
Yeah, I'll give her a call. I just, like I say, I'm gonna make sure that there's enough people nodding their head. is why don't we look into this and make a bylaw change if we have to, or whatever,
I
and
agree.
do this. And if anyone doesn't want to, I want to hear their thoughts, because I really don't see why they, from an integrity standpoint, would not want to do it.
Yeah.
So that's moving on. So the biomass, I'm glad to see that we'll be having some conversation. That's an area that I feel like I have many gaps in my understanding of the county's role as a co-partner in that, and what their challenges and what their needs are, and whether it even can be continued economically, I don't know. But as you know, we don't have much money we can kick in. So that's good that those conversations are about to happen. And I think all of us three being involved is great. I have 2 state level appointments to boards that are finally coming to their end, and I am not going to renew. That one is I've served on the Oregon Construction Contractors Board for a number of years. It's a very professional board, but it's time for me to move on. But they had nobody from the east side at all on that board.
Does it have to be an elected official?
Local government representative or a government, it's kind of, the
Is it
rest are
something
mostly
you'd wanna
tryers.
Bring up at EOCA to try to push out there?
Yeah, that's a good thing. And then the other one is
John
the,
Hillick. Is he involved with that at all?
well, it's actually more of it's less of a policy board than it is an oversight and rulemaking board. And it actually, we do review legal challenges. We do approve things on how to reach the contractors and the licensing and those types of things. And so I don't know if he would, but if anyone wants to ask me about it, I'm happy. The reason I ended up being on it, I believe, is because Greg Smith at the time, when his first year I was a fairly new county commissioner, and we were really talking on the housing stuff and the this and the that, and he, without letting me know, he gave my name to someone, and they reached out and they were like, we haven't had anyone from the east side in so long, and it's a very professionally run board. I met all the people up there when I went, but it's time to move on. The other one is the Workforce and Talent Development Board, which used to be called Workforce, I forget. Anyway, that's kind of a policy strategic board, and it's been good that I've been on it, but I've sort of been this voice in the desert as they made their state priorities to be artificial intelligence, technology, nursing and medical careers, and manufacturing. Last I checked, a couple of years ago, we were the only county out of 36 that had 0 manufacturing in our county, and that's one of the priorities. And they're really looking to go into artificial intelligence, technology careers. Great, but we still have, there's never any, for various reasons, agriculture is different, right? And I don't want it to be highly regulated, but they never have policies or supports for careers in agriculture and things that are very important to life, right? And to the world, and are what we have out here. So anyway, I've been on that a long time. I've worked hard on it, but it kind of is a bureaucratic what it is. So again, I'm serving as a local government type of a person. There used to be one other commissioner on it, Doug Hunt from, I don't remember which county he was from. But anyway, if there's a board, sometimes these boards need people. Sometimes they need people from our side of the state. I'm not looking to jump on them. I jumped on them when these were areas of the topics were important to Harney County, how they intersect from the state level down. So I feel like I gave it a shot and tried. If something comes up and we say somebody ought to get on there, let me know, because I'll have those off my plate pretty soon. Maybe I'll work more with the Eastern Oregon Workforce Board, informally at least. They're going to have a lunch and learn in, I'll send you an email. They did these in a couple other, this was this Erin Carpenter, who's the director there. She was here last week you saw her, when I had just some of our partners around the table talking to her. Apparently they were a good success and they're gonna have one in Burns in June. And so I'll send you guys that, you know, if you have time, you want to come. And then as I was looking at conferences and things that are coming up, there are two that I think I ought to go to. One is the AOC Legislative Board of Directors thing. I am the District 2 delegate, and we meet the day before the retreat itself, and again, may have this agenda item on, of course, and you guys want to go too. It's kind of far away. I mean, it's in Klamath Falls and several days. And then the Oregon Telecommunications Conference, which I've never gone to, is in October, and I believe it's in Ashland or somewhere. I don't know. I'll have to see what the agenda is. Never have gone to it. It's a couple days. I'll let you know if it's worth going to now with the broadband effort. Might be a really good place to meet and mingle and learn. I'm not starving to go, but I don't want to give up an opportunity if it's worth going to. That's all I have.
Commissioner Sheldon?
So Thursday is the Burns local implementation team meeting. Burns BLM, planning on attending that. The Cattlemen's are holding a deal up in Wallowa County June 1st. Still trying to work that into my schedule. I'll let you know if I can. That's one of our last opportunities to hear from Karen Lobdell, where she will be transferring out of that role that she's currently in and going to work for a city for legal services. So
Oh, she was
that'll be a
good,
big
right?
change. Yeah, she's been our legal counsel for the EOCA on the 21-inch rule, and so it's going to be a big hit losing her services. But she's going to do a seminar on coordination with the Forest Service and that, and so going to try to attend that. So I'll keep posted. And then I did meet with Sam Dudley, who is Sage DeLong's replacement for Governor or Representative Bence's office. He first day on the job was coming through Burns and gave me a call and wanted to sit down and visit. And so we met up, and he will be out of the Ontario office. So if you are in Ontario or that, and if people ask you, you can direct them to his office in Ontario. He's just trying to get his feet wet. I'm going to put everybody on an email back to him. He just sent me an email today. Now that he has that up and going, so that you'll all have his email and can make contact with him. He will be the natural resources person for Bence's office, but he's also being tasked with the Tri-Corner Community Collaborative. And so Sage had, attended the first meeting, and so he will be attending that, even though it's technically in the other reps region. And so
Did you hear anything on the last?
I have not heard anything, but I haven't really reached out to anybody yet. So
Just curious how the other one went.
yeah, me too. I'm like,
The first one was just a lot of structure and why we're here, and
Alex will be at that meeting, Alex Doman. And so I thought I'd get a rundown from him of how it went when I go to the lit meeting. But, yeah, so we say we have a new contact with that. It's a call from Courtney, so I'm going to step out and take that.
I have,
Hello.
first off, one go back on correspondence that I forgot about. There's a letter from the city of Burns. And it says, as the chairperson for the Burns Urban Renewal Agency, this is from Jen Keaty, city council member. As chairperson from Burns Urban Renewal Agency, I'd like to invite a board member from your taxing district. So it sounds like they probably sent this out to all the taxing districts that are affected by the urban renewal. I'd like to invite a board member from your taxing district to please join us at our monthly meeting in an advisory board capacity. Our public meetings are held on the third Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m. at the City of Burns Council Chambers. The advisory board will have the opportunity to provide input on each topic that comes before the agency. Advisory board members' perspectives and ideas will be of great value to the decision-making process.
You know, I would say, except that you have so much on your plate, that it would be great if you could be on that, unless it turns out that it's not the
It's-
right.
It's tonight,
venue.
so I'm gonna go.
Oh,
I
good.
wanna go.
Oh, good.
And hear what's going on, because I will say, I've got the documentation in there for the urban renewal, but, I haven't had a chance to really thoroughly study it. So some in-person, visitation on that board or in that process would be good. So I was planning on going, but anybody else could go, or if
Right.
anybody,
No, I think with you as the administrator, the budget officer, the county court chair, and all these things that you are, and you know, you live with things on a daily basis that the commissioners don't, and you explain things well. So if you come to an understanding of more of what they do and how they do it and how it affects us, you can explain to us, I'd appreciate that.
as far as, general deliberation, I don't remember if I had mentioned it in the last meeting or not. But, we contracted with a company called Spyglass, which sounds, their title is.
That sounds
is-
vaguely familiar. You must
Yeah.
have mentioned something.
Their title is more ominous than their service. And the county actually contracted with them 5 years ago. And what they do is they do a complete review of all of our internet and telecommunications accounts, to make sure that we're not being overcharged, to make sure we're not being charged for services that we're not getting. Charge the appropriate taxes and all that kind of stuff. So, and what happens is they will review. I've given them, a release authority, whatever, to contact our providers and whatnot. And we had to put together 2 months worth of, thank you, Tammy, for that, 2 months worth of invoices for them to review for each one of our accounts. And then they'll go through and look at everything and look for, like I say, those overcharges. And anything that we're due a refund on for overcharges. Let me back up. So they'll go through and do all that. They produce a report, and then if we haven't committed to any financial obligation yet until the end of the work is done. And then they provide a report, which we get to keep whether we decide to contract with them or not. And then the contract will be that anything they find that we were overcharged and do a refund on, they get half of it. It could be as little as $500, we get $250 a piece. And then anything moving forward that in the billing that we've been charged improperly, that amount times 12. So basically for a year, is what we would owe them. And then from that point going forward, we potentially have reduced costs then from that point forward. And the way they look at it is we've already budgeted for that next 12 months. We've already budgeted for the next 12 months. So we're really not out any money if they find us savings. We're not out any money. It's what we've already budgeted. And then from that point forward, we realize the savings.
Sounds
they're
interesting.
They're in the process right now of doing their review.
Well, I was on the court 5 years ago, but please let me know what happened 5 years ago with them in the county, because I don't remember.
There was some savings that they got a refund back on. I want to say it was only like $800 or not $800 and some change. So we got 4 something a piece. And then the amount that they found that was being overcharged, and we would, split basically pay for that over a 12-month period, or that 12-month period that we would have paid was only a few $1,000s is what we ended up paying them. And then we realized those savings in years afterwards. At this time right now, because we just transferred from CenturyLink telephone service and gone to Vonage, our monthly bills are still $1,000. And we shouldn't hardly have anything left with CenturyLink. So it's a good time for them for this service to have popped up, and for them to
Okay.
do an analysis of what we still have and what we don't have. Cause I'd been actually in talks with CenturyLink trying to figure out what lines were still valid and which lines weren't and what we're being charged for. But not being in that industry and knowing all those ins and outs, it was good that these guys popped up, because they just contacted me and say, yeah, we recontact companies every 5 years and see if you want it. So I'm hoping to see a lot of savings from that CenturyLink
I
old
hope
account.
so. That sounds good.
But that's what they did 5 years ago, and I thought at this time it would be pretty advantageous to have them look at it again.
Thank you.
I think that's all I've got.
At some point on the agenda, doesn't, have to be next month, but would you think about inviting, Angie Lamborn and whoever to give us an update on the Veterans Village? By then we will have, heard the biomass side of things and know that piece, but, yeah, I know that it was a long winter but I just haven't seen much happening yet. And maybe a lot is happening. Or maybe it's gonna be paused and we would just like to be aware.
Yeah. I haven't heard of anything. I wasn't able to attend the last board meeting, at conflict. But I haven't heard of any major initiatives by the hub.
Oh, I just remembered, I have one more thing, regarding the cemetery care contract renewal. So I'm about ready to, plug in the language that was discussed at that meeting. But I've been getting, some calls, and one in particular, where there are more discussions apparently going on. If you take cemetery care out of the picture, and just look at the county and the jail and those things. Still more conversations going on, and this individual that I'll tell you about, would like to meet with you, and I said, well, go ahead and meet with him, etc. But my thought is, we can probably make the changes we discussed and put it in here, but as I was looking at exit language or whatever amendments and things, just in case in the next year or so, we come to even more changes regarding support that we get. So, to me, modification, this contract may not be waived, altered, modified, supplemented, or amended in any manner except by written instrument signed by the parties. Such written modification will be made a part of this contract and subject to all other provisions of this contract. To me, that's sufficient for, should we feel there is a need, this is on the cemetery care contract, should we feel that 6
So
months from now, a year from now, because it's a 2-year contract.
I was gonna say that would be for
And-
mid-contract changes, right?
Right, I mean, because it's not something they usually do, but if there's a need, to me, that's probably sufficient to make it happen. I think we should pursue the conversation anytime.
I don't recall, is there a termination clause?
It says, yeah, there is, and it's. Okay, guess I'm way on.
Is this?
In the event of termination, yeah,
I don't think so yet. Dominic will still need to review this,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it's basically, it may be terminated by mutual consent of both parties with at least 60 days notice in writing. The county may unilaterally terminate or modify this contract for cause in whole or in part under the following conditions. And then it has mostly to do with whether their people are licensed properly, those types of provisos, fraud, dishonesty, any of those for cause. Reasonable time to cure defaults. In the event of termination, of this contract, the contractor, meaning cemetery care, shall cooperate, ensure orderly transition, et cetera, et cetera. We're not looking to terminate it. We're not, we're not looking at that. That's not what we're talking about here. We're
No,
just
but
talking about,
it is in there though.
but the meeting we had the other, last week or
Your work
whenever it
session.
was, basically Symmetry Care said, well, what we can do is we can let your deputy, your jail staff person that's being added, that's going to be doing a number of kind of catch-all duties, we will train them so they can do something in the jail. Well, that's pretty minimal, pretty hard. We'll have to see how it works. At least there was that conversation, and I'll be putting in a sentence. But to me, what I'm hearing
But we really
is
want them to provide the
is-
services, not our stuff.
there's a lot of ways to break
that's
down
my
the
perspective.
financials.
I agree that excuse me, I'm sorry. I agree totally. But given the staff over here, other tools to use, such as.
Oh,
some
yeah,
of that
tools
is
are great.
Is great, but to put that
Long-term
totally on their
plan.
shoulder, yeah, I don't.
So I'll be sending out, and I'll put in red the part we're adding or changing to you guys and to Dominic. Because, it's supposed to be July 1st that we do it. We're not making major changes, but the fact that I sense that there's a perception in the community that some of the things they think the mental behavioral health stuff isn't where it needs to be. That's something I'm the ex officio member representing the county court at their board meetings, and it's generally one of those kind of board meetings so far that they just financial, okay, there's really no meaty discussions, so I'm happy to bring it up at occasion. I'm not trying to push them, but I do think their board members need to know, that, and I actually heard Fred Flippins, who's a board member, say at one of the board meetings that he's hearing people make negative comments about Symmetry Care, and he was very surprised. And so I don't know in what venues he's heard things. I'm not trying to just add fuel to the
I'm
fire, but
directing them to you now when they bring it up to me, so FYI.
thanks a lot. Actually, I do want to know if there's quite a few, and I mean, whatever. We have a need to serve our jail population, the fact is, those guys don't have the money to pay, their insurance gets dropped. And that's, I think, the big barrier, but, it's kind of like, to me, county court, we want our county finances to be stable and healthy. You got to decide how much do you need in reserve, but how much do you need to be spending on the things you need to spend them on as you go. Right, there's that balance. It's a judgment call, and it's you can view it different ways. Same with, I would think, Symmetry Care. They are a believer in good financial shape. They provide services to people in the community, including people who have insurance, right? And they're doing well in that. Now we've got a population that doesn't have insurance, and the state doesn't, they could change their policy a little bit and let Oregon Health Plan cover them, and they don't. And these are the people very much in need, and that we all deal with, and that we all want to help. I just feel like that conversation the other day it's something, but it's probably more to come in the years to come. And
I agree. The conversation was there, but I think there's more to the conversation.
For instance, if they have a rate in the way they depict what it costs for them to provide a certain level of services to the jail, I'd like to see what that means. And then I'd like to see where they currently spend that piece that is the state money. And then just see if we
Can redirect.
Yeah. Again,
So does the board vote specifically on things, or are you guys just presented things?
I am not a voting member, by the way, but
Why?
they just vote on minutes, agenda, approval of the financials. I've only been to 3 meetings, so it's one of those boards. Some are more or less formalities. Maybe they do get into the meat of things at times. They often have a staff member come and talk about, their outreach that they're starting, or some things that they're doing. It's a positive environment. But it's not a place where you really engage in a lot of.
I would, and this, we've had this conversation a week or so ago. I would like to see more proactiveness in their services. I hear, and I understand, you can't compel somebody to treatment. But the term that's used is we can't do anything for them until they walk through the door. Well, a proactive outreach to people out in our community that might be of that vulnerable population that we're seeing an increase in. A proactive approach to them and letting them know what services are available. Some of the stuff we spoke about for the L-chip, some of those services. Getting them enrolled if they're not enrolled in ODHS or whatever. And then they become paying customers, so to speak. I would like to see more of that proactive outreach on their part towards that element of our community. And I don't know if that means if it's gonna come back with a dollar amount attached to it for them to do that proactive outreach, but again, I don't know what all the provisions are of the funds that they get from the state either.
Well, if the funds are a key element to discussion and negotiation, then again, to see of the pot of money, and I don't even know what that is. I guess it's in our financials, but not labeled, where I go, oh, that's it. Okay, can you break down what you spend it on? Jail services, crisis service, group sessions for, X amount per year of paying customers, outreach, if there's outreach, support to hospital patient, I'm sure they do quite a bit. But when they gave their presentation to us in general, their report, and it was it's good, but this kind of discussion means more, tell us, show us where the money goes, so that since money is apparently a factor in this.
While we've been a partner with them or tried to be a partner with them in the contracting with the state and allowing them to directly contract. So it streamlines process. It allows them to go directly to the state and contract for those funds, but this agreement still is
It's personal
what's
services.
required of the county,
Mhm.
and we're contracting with them to do. So that's where we really, you can look at it as anything outside of that mandated services that the county has to provide as extra. But if we were running it, if the county had that as a department like it used to be, where would we be going with it?
And, I'm sure there's a lot of aspects that I'm not aware of, and that's a good time for them to inform us. Help us all understand. And I'm not trying to make this adversarial in any way.
It's
Just,
called accountable.
it's called, working together. And that's how I view it. I do have a meeting later this month for that, but, at least for this, I don't, my own, but we'll let Dominic, I'll specifically say, is there anything here in particular attention to this that would mean we couldn't kind of work on things between the end of this contract? And I'll get that out to you guys. Thank you. When we do a county council review, do we have to? When does he sign it, I guess? After we sign it, does it go to him to sign, or is there an electronic signature for him that when he says do it? I'm just curious. I'm probably gonna need to know that.
I hadn't thought about it as far as order of process goes.
Familiar.
I'll ask him
In
if
general.
it should go to him and get his signature first before the other.
And
signatures go
I'll
on.
be talking to him next week, so I will also ask him that, but
Okay.
I just didn't know if you already knew the answer to that one.
Yeah, I don't,
Okay,
Be a good one to know.
it would for all future.
Yeah, because I've
Yeah.
seen it not happen, like that never went, that couldn't get signed, but it got filed, and so.
and like when you guys say, has Dominic looked at it, and I say,
But we don't-
yes, it'd
we
be nice
assume
if
he
you felt
looked at
really
it.
comfortable with it,
His name
right?
wasn't on.
Did you learn anything to share from your phone call?
June 8th is not on the table. They will be getting back to us shortly.
But it might be sooner?
No.
Oh, okay, good. Easy to erase.
Any, and I don't remember what you said last time on the consultant for the fair, Bill, did they come? up
The
with anything yet?
19th, and so
19th.
keep you posted as soon as we do hear. that they're ready to provide us the material to go out for that whole RFP. Yes,
Make sure we see the RFP because I might need to use a template.
well, it's one that, you know, we use for the other one. We'll probably be doing something similar to that. But using the material that they gathered, you know, what scope of work will be done.
Anything else?
I can think of it.
It's nice to be done before noon.
I was gonna say, we'll be done.
Sure, there's something that I'm not.
And it doesn't, I mean, doesn't have to be on the record or whatever, but I have this group of individuals here that deal with the budget, and I have a couple of questions. Number one, and I think it was in the discussions yesterday or at some time, Daimler Park. The
Climber
Boy
Park?
Scout,
Daimler,
yeah.
Daimler or whatever. We've been asked again, you know, periodically there is damage done by winter, washout, whatever, and through the years, we've went up there and did repairs. This year's kind of extensive, washed out, culvert gone, you know, accessing it, which I believe that they rented out to individuals like come Memorial Day weekend.
That is a whole nother discussion to have.
Okay, so anyway, we're gonna go up there and,
Who's renting it out?
well,
We'll go into that in.
Okay.
Okay.
okay, so anyway, we do repair up there, okay, and again, you know, just for an example, you know, I think differently than a private business, you know, they do job costing and they get all their expenses. And I do the same thing, okay? You know, we do a project, I get all my expenses and then I have a cost per mile, whatever, and that I can look at, evaluate. But the ones that really, that I perk my ears up with and say, is when I have to write a check out. So if I have to buy oil,
It
or if
becomes
I
an
have to buy
expense.
rock,
Yeah.
it's an expense that I have to write a check out for. Other expenses, labor, whatever, you know, guys are gonna come to work whether I direct them this way or that way. So it's not that big a deal.
But when
But-
it comes to materials.
Materials, so again, I'm gonna have to supply a pipe. If there's some type of gradation of aggregate, huh?
Like the culvert.
It's gone.
Like somebody came into. it.
Well, we don't know yet, but I mean, is it under a big pile of mud somewhere? We don't know, but to get people in and out of there, it needs to have a pipe in it.
If, and I wonder, I need to check with CIS. I wonder if situations like that, where it's a storm, it's weather related, it's an active nature or whatever, or if we have any coverage under CIS for those kind of repairs.
I would just check. I mean,
Yeah.
I suspect there's a few aspects of our insurance that we haven't fully utilized or even checked. That
So
might be
again, I mean, we're gonna go do the work, we're gonna evaluate it, what we need and whatever, and we're gonna do the work. And we'll treat it as a job, Debbie will keep track of it. I just wanna let people know that, you know, this time around,
But
if I
if
have
it
to
should
buy
come
something.
out of our park fund
Right.
to cover
Yeah.
these
Okay.
expenses
Yeah.
versus your fund.
Yeah,
You know, and
Yeah.
that's where
Okay,
on our
that
side.
was
we
my
need to be
question, because
sure,
I thought
yeah.
that there was, so.
Yes, there is.
Okay, so the other question I have, and I'm just now getting into, evaluations, employee evaluations. And when I do my budget for the top section personnel, like I explained to Bill at one time, I just, you know, I take a percentage and I add to last year's to make sure that I have enough to cover that segment without having to come back and ask for a resolution. If something, say I do my evaluations, I determine that through a, you know, a step grade, whatever, that someone's gonna get bumped, then it gives me the latitude to do that. And I don't know with the numbers that are there, because a lot of times I send them up here and then they get evaluated other, you know, I just want to make sure that I still have that latitude, and I know it's late in the game, But I wanna, if I need to move money, say from, and again, hypothetically speaking,
Which
now that I
should be
have
built into
oil
the
prices, if I need to move money from oil to, say, overtime, which is in that segment, then I won't have to come back in, say, March or April and say, hey, it looks like I'm gonna run short and I need to do a resolution to make that happen. So again, I'm just asking for your advice. Do I address that now, or do I wait till we need to do a resolution in March or April of next year, and we just run with it?
So in a staff meeting last month, I think it was.
Which I was at a conference, I think.
Okay. I had, was it that one where I indicated, because I think you were there for that one, where I indicated that step increases would be on the 6-month mark, the January 1 or the July 1 mark? Was that
I
that
don't
meeting?
recall if Eric was there, but I remember you saying at
Yeah,
a
okay, so it
department
was the
meeting
last-
that you're thinking
So I
about
wanna-
doing this.
My intent is to build in step increases, that if anybody's gonna give step increases, they'll either be on the July 1 mark initially as soon as the budget takes effect,
Okay.
or the January 1 at the 6-month mark.
Okay.
It'll be easier to budget and figure out how much to put into that line, if it's gonna be a 6-month increment or a full year increment of a step increase.
Right.
So that's my intent on step increases, is to take effect either on the July 1 date or the January 1 date. And if it's not budgeted for, so basically, if you come, when you come in for budget time, if you're looking at giving somebody a step increase on that January 1 mid-year, that needs to be plugged in at that time, so that the funds are there to support that increase.
And he also mentioned, which may not have been your understanding, I don't know, that the pay scale and steps and all that is laid out, that step increase is not automatic, nor is it annual necessarily. It is maybe every 2 or 3 years. Merit
Well,
based.
again, I mean,
Performance
we
based.
had this discussion last year when I started losing employees and I wanted to retain those employees that have been here for a while and have shown some type of, through the evaluation that they deserve. And I have not done that throughout the years. And so last year was it was an eye opener for me to be able to do that and to give that. I mean, it's policy. I mean, that's why we have grade and steps. And so within the guidelines of the handbook or whatever, we can evaluate and do that. And again, I have those funds to do that, and I did not do all of them last year. So I would like to be able to continue that as I evaluate people to be able to do that. But I want to make sure that the money's there to do it.
That it's been allocated within the budget.
So,
because I've never had to deal with it before, because I've always, even though that there wasn't gonna be a cost of living or whatever, I've always just taken that whole segment and added 3% to it, even though I may not use it. I knew it was there, so it was never a discussion, but, so.
well, I'd like to be more deliberate than that myself in the budget, so that's where it looks ahead, that if you have an employee that, their anniversary date is close to that January 1, so say it's mid-year. And it's close to that January date, so their evaluation may be October, November, December, or January, February, March, but it's closer to that mid-year point. You do the evaluation and then, let me back up. So at budget time, when we have the budget discussion, you have that employee that's around that time frame, and you're intending to give that person a step increase at mid-year. So when we have our budget discussion, we need to plug that money in.
Well,
to
and
that
that's what I'm
line.
saying. It's hard to evaluate or to address that evaluation when you're thinking of something where their anniversary date is say August or and then I'm working on a budget that is in April, at that point in time, those numbers in that chart that is, which I'm still using ones from a few years back and adding percentages to them. I don't have the actual chart.
You never got the.
No, and so I'm using that, so you're in a mystery anyway, but am I, at that time when I do that evaluation, am I gonna do that step and grade? I don't know that. So
Well, but-
why not put it in somewhere where it's still in that category? And so if I so choose to do that evaluation and do that step, okay, there's money in that category of personnel, it's there. I mean, to sit there and go through everything in March of, well, this person is and this person is, and to make sure that each individual, I don't know that for sure. I mean, something may happen along the way and I decide, you know what, I'm not gonna do that jump, okay?
Then you don't have to, and it's there if you need it. Look, I have an employee that's evaluation is due mid-year. And I may want to give that person a step increase and I may not,
Right,
but I need to plug that in because they've been doing good. They've been doing it good, and at this point right now, I'm looking at giving them a step. So unless something happens in their performance between that time and they fall apart and you don't decide not to give them a step increase, the funds are there in case you do give it, but if you don't give it, they just don't get spent.
Well, and my question is, so as we've been going through the budget, HR said, well, because a lot of them came in and said, well, I'm not sure on the personnel piece, what that actually looks like now. And so I don't know, like, when they came with their worksheets and that, they went over materials and supplies, revenue and that, but and maybe this is kind of feeding into this, is a lot of departments did come in and said, but I'm not sure what my personnel lines look like. So once we got started with the budget process, were those HR figures provided back to each department? So like, Eric could look at it and be like,
No, I didn't.
oh, okay.
So after I sent out the initial worksheets that didn't have the employee stuff built into it yet.
Uh-huh.
And then basically we did materials and supplies.
so that's
And
the
then I
only
got-
segment that I don't actually,
That's the
I mean, I
mystery
can use, I can use kind of inflated or, not exact budget numbers. I mean, kind of like, it's
But
different
you
than when
don't
I do
know
oil
the
or
HR.
supplies or things like that, because I know. But when they get sent up here, those get manipulated and moved around, and then so they're not exactly.
Well, being communicated back to you where they were, so you can take a look at them prior to finalization of the budget.
Exactly, and that's where I'm at right now, is that I know we're far along on this, but again, I don't want to have to go and ask for a resolution if I decide to do those step grades on individuals, not everybody, just individuals. So I guess that's my question.
At the time of a decision, like he's saying he wants to be able to do, does he circle back to HR or the administrator, or how does
The
that work?
budget
I was just
officer
curious.
or-
Like if a department head is,
At budget time or during the
no,
year?
during the year, what is the process?
Well, if it's not budgeted for at budget time, then it's gonna take a resolution to move funds into the.
If
into
it is
personal
budgeted
services.
for and they
If it
just make
is.
that decision, is there any intersection here? At the head shed, or, I mean, does he email you or does he, what do you
They do
intend to do?
they
There's
do
a
a
form.
personnel action
Yeah.
form that they would send to HR,
And-
recommending a step increase or
And
whatever.
you'd initial or not?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and it has a routing at the bottom for HR, department head, county
That's
judge.
just like a
county
solid-
magistrate.
while ago, did you not?
I saw it, but I didn't know for sure that
That's
that was
what's
going to
used.
cover that and
Yeah.
that what the process was. So thank you.
So, again, I apologize, first year, figuring out all the wrinkles.
Well,
what
and
I
a lot
needed.
of this stuff, I'm not,
I
I
don't
wasn't,
think we've ever provided it back to departments.
Well,
so.
what we're working on though for
Yeah.
next year is that the Tyler system that we use for all of our payroll and everything. It has the ability that once we put in, like say we're gonna do like this year, we proposed a 3% across the board. So it has the ability that we would go in and build that 3% in and then dump all that information over into the budget sheet. So that when you get the worksheet, all of that is figured in. That's with the 3%. That's what we're looking at. If you want to make any changes outside of that, such as step increases mid-year or at the beginning of the year, then that would be, okay, I see this person is at this rate, this amount of money, this rate. I want them, I'm considering even a step increase, mid-year. Then I need to build that in.
And then that worksheet would be what he comes back to the
Back to
budget
me, yeah.
officer with.
Right.
And then it's automatically built into the budget as we go through the budget process, but we haven't really had a good mechanism for.
So
This
what do
kind of
we,
back and
okay,
forth
so
before,
I'm
so-
say for like this
Yeah.
year, I mean, as far as long as we are in the budget cycle, what do I do now?
We still have the ability,
Yeah, we're
we went through the budget committee and we have an approved budget.
Mhm.
With recommended.
Yeah,
And
we
again,
have-
I'm not looking at changing the bottom line. I won't do that. What I'll do is take a line item now that I know, just like for an example, and I don't know if this would be the way I do it, but now that I have my oil prices and I know how many miles I'm gonna do, I know what my number is now. I didn't back in March. I learned my numbers for oil just in the last month, so I could take an amount from that line item, move it up into that category somewhere. So that category will not get blown and neither will my oil, and my bottom number will never, it won't change. My budget will be the same. I'm just taking and moving that without having to do a resolution down the road.
Well, and I think something we've talked about is instead of making you have to, come from your materials and supplies line and try to plug in money to personnel, that we'd rather just have it plugged into personnel. And then if you don't spend all your materials and supplies line, that's fine. It still comes out in the wash,
Mhm.
but to not have to necessarily take your materials and supplies money and then partway through put it in. Before we approve the budget, we would like that personnel line to be what
To
you.
reflect. what
Right,
you-
and again, that would be in the
reflect what you-
future when
Yeah.
we actually have that, but now you're working with this budget cycle. So I don't have to do a resolution in March,
Okay, so that's where I was going with that.
okay?
So we have a recommended approved budget,
Mhm.
but we can still make changes.
Okay,
If you have staff, we need to do this right away, though.
okay,
If you have staff that you're thinking that you want to give a step increase
Mhm.
as of July 1 or as of January 1,
Mhm.
you need to come in and we need to build those lines up.
okay.
So
Okay,
did
yeah.
Deanna get all that plugged in? So like the sheets that were printed off, I think we just, you brought us general fund. But were all the other funds accurate on the personnel services?
Yeah.
Okay,
With the 3%.
with the
Yes.
3%, but not necessarily what Eric's
Right.
doing.
So
So
what she's
he
doing
can
right,
look at those.
she gives me a sheet of each employee, well, there's multiple employees on a sheet, but each employee is broke down by base pay.
Mhm.
PERS, medical, FICA, Oregon Public Leave, unemployment insurance, it has each one of those on there, and then the way it is right now, then I have to take that sheet and put in the base pay, and then go through and add up all the FICAs.
Well, and that's
All
what I'm
of-
saying, if I add, say I'm gonna bump somebody at some point in time. I'm basing that on a full, it wouldn't be a full burden rate.
Right.
My number wouldn't be, hers would be, because you are gonna go down and through and do all the FICA and all that other stuff, so my numbers are still gonna be skewed to a certain extent.
Until you get
So-
them back to look at.
So,
Yeah.
so if I know at the budget process, if I know you want to give it at July 1 or
Mhm.
January 1, then I can have her plug that in as a step increase as of January 1, and it'll give all those FICA rates and everything from that point forward. And I can then add that into the FICA and the medical, or, anything that's gonna affect it based on the base pay rate.
Okay.
And build all those lines up, so that it would cover that increase as of January 1, or specifically July 1, it's gonna be a full year.
And then it's still up to you
But
as the department head to implement those changes as.
Yeah, it's not
your-
automatic.
Right.
But it's
ready to
there.
do the
No.
evaluations and take that next step, but then budgetarily, you know, you're fine to follow through with that.
All right. Nope, I will get that information back. to you.
This obviously, now that you're on board and pretty far along, the department head training at some point might be in order.
And we've talked about
Yeah,
that.
we've talked
Maybe-
about gaps in department head training, that there's just assumptions that, you know, have been made of what people know or understand, and there's opportunity for us to make sure that we can close some of those gaps with
Gaps.
department
Sure.
heads,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
most department heads, once they hit that role, don't have all the pieces that they need to really fulfill their role, and that's really our responsibility to make sure those.
It is.
Get put in
It's
place.
incumbent upon the. Yeah,
Yeah, so we're becoming more aware of some of those gaps, so if you recognize any, you know, that's great feedback for us.
Don't
too.
assume that we know some of the gaps
Well, and
that you may
again,
be
that,
waiting
that,
for.
you know, I mean, it is, it's a learning process for myself, because again, what I've done in the past, it was, you know, a simpleton, you know, I mean, again, you have that category and you have FICA and you have SAFE and you have all those categories in there, and you just, in a general sense, I would add a percentage on there, and then I knew, not specific for each individual, I just knew that in that
I
category,
know you were-
I'd be covered if I decided to do a bump, and it,
you were over budgeting.
oh,
your
yeah, I
personal
mean, there was times, but I had
services.
that, it was there, the number,
Yeah.
I mean, the dollar amount was there.
You were over budgeting your personal services by 3% or whatever. That then when one specific line. Cause it's gonna cover itself. Everything out of personal services, if there's a shortage in one. If there's a shortage in line 1, is gonna get covered by the
Yes.
excesses in line 10 or whatever.
Exactly.
But I would prefer to have more accurate budgeting of line by line of what we're actually gonna spend. That's the purpose behind that.
Yeah, which, like I say, we just didn't understand that there wasn't good communication back on the personnel services
Sure.
end number that was being presented to the budget board, and so I think this will be a great way using the Tyler system and how Bill's looking at it now, of trying to have those budget sheets be different and more effective, so that everybody feels like they're more.
My learning curve is
Knowledgeable.
affecting others, and I'm sorry for that.
No, it's.
No, well, no, it wasn't happening before either, and so he's, you know, recognizing a way to maybe try to help better communicate that out and make the worksheet even more effective and digitize it and stuff, so I think you'll enjoy the process, hopefully.
We're
Better.
looking at, well, once they get in touch with me, but the Tyler system that we use.
Mhm.
Has a new version to it. And it has some functionality to be able to allow department heads to type in and do your own budget in Tyler. And then it all comes together. We print it out, review it, have our discussion then, whether it's already in there. Have our discussion then, as far as the budget officer part of it goes, we have our discussion then, and then push it forward. There's less room for error and miskeying, because you wrote it down in pencil and then I have to type it in. So there's other things that we're looking at doing to help streamline that process and make it more accurate.
And Eric, the budget committee is going to continue to meet throughout the year to work on things like this and other topics. If you've got anything else that you wanted to look at?
To help develop policy and whatnot, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we're certainly open to improvements, we know there's need.
Well, I even saw an improvement in the fact that department heads over the years, some have come, and you were one of them, who could talk to the budget sheets that we're dealing with for your department, and some that never used to. They would have lots of nice informative handouts about their department and then how they figured stuff, but when we got talking on certain lines, some of them didn't really get it. Now they get it. I mean, I'm already saw that the majority of them could talk to the budget sheets that we have to deal with.
Sure.
So that's good. Yours always did, but it's all getting.
Yeah,
in
we're getting there.
to a nice level.
We just have to define what there is.
That's true.
What do they say in the news? There's no there. And that takes us, unless we have anything else, that takes us to the end of the agenda.
I move to adjourn.
A second.
Motion has been made to adjourn and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. we shall stand adjourned at 12:16 PM on May 17th, 2023.